Kerri Wise, welcome. It is so great to have you here at the F&I Master Series Forum, The Digital Age. And, for our dealers and viewers, first and foremost, I think what we need to do is, could you explain your background, where you've been, who you've been with, and also currently you're now with AutoFi. So explain your role, what's going on, Kerri?
Yes. Thank you for having me. First of all, I think this is my first time speaking at this event, so I'm honored to be a part of it. I know you've been doing some amazing work over the last couple decades, and so thank you for having me.
Thank you.
My name is Kerri Wise. I have been working in auto for 23 years, and I have a very unique background in terms of my career history. Never thought I would end up in automotive, but started at JD Power and Associates, and really focused on more of kind of the sales and service oriented research and consulting. And I worked with dealers and OEMs on kind of how do we take the consumer insights and turn it into action. Right. And so that was the start of my career. Moved on to Edmunds.com and launched their dealer business.
Okay.
At that point, I was in training. So I had a field team that went into stores and helped them understand how to make the best out of the Edmunds platform, and eventually moved to marketing and went on to TrueCar, which at the time was kind of shaking things up a little bit in the industry with price transparency, and led marketing for them. I was also kind of an evangelist in the industry, helping them understand kind of price transparency and where that was going. And that was kind of the hot thing,
big.
Right? Which
yeah.
shook the industry up a little bit. And then recently, it's been a year now almost, last April, that I joined AutoFi. And really excited about AutoFi because I get to take all that history and really work directly with dealers and enabling them to be more efficient, to have a digital presence that allows them to compete with the modern day giants and disruptors out there. And that's exciting to kind of solely work with dealers now and other sellers and retailers.
Well, there you go to new heights, and you continue to do that and just spread the word. And it is amazing what you have done for our industry. Let me just say that. You're just remarkable. I love your forward thinking ideas, and that's just what you are. I mean, it's just awesome to see and hear. And I can't tell you how many presentations over the year. You do amazing. So that's why I'm saying it is exciting, sir, to have you here, Kerri, on this event.
So we have a very exciting industry, right? And so I think for me, I've always wanted to kind of work at companies that were somewhat pushing that envelope, but ultimately helping dealers, right? Like that's what we all want to do, is help dealers move forward, so that we could be successful ultimately.
Yeah, I think that's always been your goal. I know it's always been my goal as well. And sometimes, change is painful a little bit, right? But it's necessary. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to reinvent and just reinvent the whole process. I think if we can tweak some of it, right, we can implement some of these best practices that really can make a big difference.
100%.
So there's been this digital retailing buzzword going on in the past 5 years. And so some dealers feel like, okay, well, it's a plug and play. I'm going to put this DR on my website. Let's have fun with it. And customers will like it to some degree. And that's about it. But what you're saying is, wait a minute, wait. Yes. We not only want that experience, but we also want to connect those dots to the in-dealership experience. I'm going to let you take that one.
Yeah. I think, digital retailing is absolutely the buzzword. I try not to call AutoFi a digital retailing company, but ultimately you get cornered because that is the word that everybody knows. I like to think of us as a commerce platform because ultimately digital retailing is retailing. Right? Like digital retailing is retailing, meaning that you're trying to sell a car. And yes, you want to give a customer the opportunity to do it from end to end online. But the reality is that the majority of customers aren't going to do everything online. right? Buying a car is very complicated. And so even though consumers want the flexibility to do as much or as little as they want online, ultimately they're likely to interact with someone in your BDC still, someone in your internet sales staff. They're likely to still interact with people in the showroom.
Mm.
And I think so we have to think about digital retailing less about the widget on the site and more about the people and the process. And where the disconnect happens is when those are not aligned.
And so, would you say that your dealership personnel really need to be a part of this integration process? And
Absolutely.
how, I think you mentioned as well, some technology and how we can integrate that technology with what's going in the dealership.
Absolutely. So I think, you have to start online in terms of, are we enabling the purchase experience online like it would in the showroom, right? Are we enabling the same customer experience, efficiency, flow? And so a lot of times I will look online and see about your CTAs, your call to actions, the flow, the user experience. It's not just the widget, it's how the experience is being presented to the customer. Are we enabling them to do everything they can do in the showroom online, right? That's getting a trade value, that's configuring a payment, that's getting approved for a loan, right? All of those things we have to think about, right? First and foremost. And the reality is that when it comes to digital retailing, there's a lot of providers out there, but many providers are still thinking about digital retailing as a lead generation.
Okay.
And I think that is kind of why digital retailing and sometimes can has a bad word. It's a bad word in some ways, right? Because it's just another lead. I think we need to think about, how do we enable an experience that looks like the showroom, the accuracy of the showroom, the efficiency, the customer experience. But you asked about people. And I think the second part, once we get past the online experiences, how do we arm our people with the digital efficiency, these tools, right? Because we could all agree that the reality is the showroom experience isn't overly efficient. I whispered that because I felt bad saying it, right?
Well, glad you said it, not me, but it's true.
There's bottlenecks, right? The
Yes.
negotiation experience, there's a lot of back and forth. The F&I experience, there's bottlenecks waiting to get into F&I. The experience takes 4 to 5 hours. Still, to this day, I've been talking about 4 to 5 hours, it feels like, for decades now. And so how do we use digital to arm your people, to empower your people, not to replace them? A couple examples of that. So, we at AutoFi have what we call a remote deal tool that we give our sales team what we call Deal Center, and they can send a link to a customer who starts the experience online, drops off, and continue that experience. Because the reality is that the customer might get a payment configuration, they might get a trade. The salesperson has that information in their Deal Center backend tool. And you got to pick the deal up where it left off. And so sending them a link, inviting them to continue the experience with you as a salesperson in a shared experience, even over the phone, is a way to keep that experience going.
And I feel like that is very important. I can't begin to tell you how many dealerships that I have been in, as much as you, and I know how disconnected that is from where the customer is shopped online. Once they get into the dealership, it's like all bets are off. We're going to start this all over again. And so the customer's thinking, well, why did I go through all the other stuff online and to start all over again? And you're so right when we talk about this F&I bottleneck that doesn't have to happen. And through leveraging your technology, we can cut down on the time it takes for that customer to buy the car, picking it up right from online, like you said, bringing it in dealership, giving the empowerment of your sales associates to have the ability to connect with that customer, engage with that customer, right? And walk them through their terms.
We find that when the dealership is using technology like a remote deal, when they're using iPads that have the same digital experience as they're presenting on their website, consumers are much more likely to continue the process when they disconnect. They're much more likely to engage with F&I products. We find our online customers are choosing 2 F&I products before they even talk to anybody.
Wow.
Right. And they're much more likely to close, right? The close rate is 2 to 3 times higher. And I should mention one more thing, is the profitability. The profitability is higher. We see about a $500 increase in PVR when they're using digital technology and the experience. So, I think we really have to combat the perception that digital is going to be a race to the bottom, that it's going to replace my people. Digital enhances the experience, it automates that experience and allows you and your A players to do the stuff they do well, right? And that's what we're really trying to get at by introducing digital into that showroom experience.
And I feel like that is so important. F&I people, and I have these groups, as you all know, in Facebook, and I have the F&I Today group, and their concern is, wait a minute, this is going to replace me. This is not something that I want to embrace. And I'm not saying just in DR, because I don't think that they truly understand the idea behind it and how it can actually increase that PVR and make a difference. So when a customer has the idea or has an understanding of these products beforehand, and as you know, growing up in the business, it was always, don't talk about that stuff, whatever you do. Wait until the customer gets into this F&I office, and then we'll go ahead and close them down. So yes, this is the opposite of something that they've ever been trained to do. And they're feeling like right now they're pretty successful the way that they are. But what they're not realizing is that, again, giving customers the tools to be able to do that shopping, to determine and have a better understanding of these product knowledge, I would imagine what you're saying.
Yeah.
So when they get into that or engage with that finance person, it's not so overwhelming.
Absolutely. I think, the 10-step sales process, we're kind of shaking it up. It's not as linear of a purchase experience as it used to be. And I think when you look at, there's a study by JD Power, I think it showed 45% of customers are looking to research financing before they ever leave their homes, right? They're using financing as a way to figure out what vehicle they can afford. They're looking for it to figure out, like, can they actually, is this the right vehicle for them? And so we have to stop thinking about financing as just the ultimate last step when most shoppers are payment shoppers. So if we don't jump into this game, one, I don't want to use the disruptors out there, but we have to think about their market share, and they're gaining market share, right? Because they're interacting with the customer in the way the customer wants. So that's one thread. But more importantly, the dealership down the street that enables a customer to configure a payment, right? To understand what they can afford, to shop for vehicles based on payment. That is a dealership that's going to engage with the customer that might pass you up. You'll never even have a chance at that with certain customers.
Well, I'm telling you right now, KERRI, I don't know if you realize this or not, but you're talking my language.
Yes.
I'm all over that. I
Yeah.
really am. I'm thinking, why shouldn't a customer have the education, have a better understanding of what they qualify for
Yes.
earlier on, as soon as possible? Why are we waiting until that, like you said, the last step? That just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, and with technology, it makes all of us smarter. It doesn't replace the work, but it makes us smarter. So you think about your phone, right? Like, you're not looking at a map anymore. When you want to go somewhere, you're using Google Map or whatever you prefer, and that's what you're using to get you there. You still got to drive. You still have to do the work, but it made it a little easier and more efficient, right? And I think about technology in the same way. We have a dealership that has enabled their BDC to be able to quote a payment. Shocking. I know people are like, whoa, never, never, right? The BDC's job is to just get them in for the appointment. But the reality is that this dealership had the challenge that most BDCs have, where the customer is like, I'm not driving 45 miles until you give me an idea of the payment. I'm not coming in.
Yeah.
And so with technology and automation, it can enable a BDC rep to actually quote an accurate price, right? Or work with the customer in a shared experience, because the customer is telling us their terms, they're telling us their credit score, they're telling us whether they want to finance, purchase, or lease. They're even filling out a credit application where we can get a soft pull, right? And
Amen.
actually pull their credit score. So with our algorithm and technology, we could actually figure out, based on that credit score, based on the customer's profile, and based on the parameters that the dealer set up, what banks are going to be the right banks to put in front of them. And you're putting that in the hands of a BDC. Now, that's not for everybody. I don't want to scare everybody on this conference that that's where it's going. I'm just saying that that's an extreme example of, maybe the most inexperienced person in the dealership as it relates to F&I could at least get the process started with a customer that is demanding that level of service.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. I might just blow you away, KERRI. I actually agree with you. And I can't begin to tell you how many times I've said to a dealer, are we training up our BDC? And can they actually provide customers with information, realistic information as it pertains to terms, as it pertains to financing to some degree? Because
Yes.
when we can't answer those questions, just get them in the dealership. That's all we want to do. Just get them in the dealership. The problem with that, I mean, I understand it, but
Mhm.
when we do that, and we have customers traveling 3 hours away or 2 hours away from their home to come to the dealership, and only to find out that they don't qualify for that vehicle. And you want
Right,
to
right.
talk about the experience then, and they say, well, just make it more, this DR experience is just not as friendly as that in person. I'm like, well, I can tell you right now, they're not going to be too friendly when they're all coming 2 hours and coming in and finding out that they don't qualify for this vehicle, and there's no other vehicles for them to maybe consider because
Yeah, and I
of
can't
the price.
emphasize enough the fact that accuracy needs to be there, right? You need to partner with a digital retailing platform or commerce platform that's going to enable a high level of accuracy. I call it showroom accuracy,
Well,
right?
okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So there are the good and the bad, and not everyone is as accurate, right? With in terms of taxes and fees and the local information, right, at the local
Yeah.
level,
That's
right, and
right.
the rebates and incentives from the manufacturer and subvention when it matters. All of that needs to be accounted for in order to quote a customer a real payment. But that being said, when we get past that, it's a good experience. It's a win-win because the customer is going to feel more confident. We find that when the customer is more confident, that when we put a little bit more control in their hands, right? Perceived control, because it's still based on the parameters that the dealer is comfortable with,
Mhm.
customers will spend more money, right? We talk about F&I product presentation, right?
Yeah.
Who would be upset that the customer on their own chose 2.2 F&I products before they came in? Like, why would that be a bad thing? What we often find is, even if the customer chooses those two products, now they're in front of the F&I director. The F&I director can go through the products they didn't choose, and once again have a second chance at bat
Yep.
to say, hey, I noticed you didn't choose gap insurance. I want to make sure you understand, right, what this is and the
I
benefit to you.
think it's the concept. It's
Yeah.
understanding it. So you may know my background in that years back when I was working with JM&A, I get promoted to this AutoNation division. And everybody thought, what are you doing this for, Becky? Get back in the box. And the whole idea was we were presenting menu. And this was a brand new concept. And it was, what do you mean? Customer understand the terms of the sale. What do you mean the customer understands their payment and the product offerings all in advance? And everybody and their mother said, there's no way in heck this is going to work. It's just not going to work. Don't you know? It's never going to work. And I can't begin to tell you the naysayers that told me, I don't know what you're doing, but you need to stop. You need to go do something different because this
Yeah.
is going to fall apart. And it didn't.
No,
So
of course
it
not.
just didn't. And it was beautiful because I learned, and it was different for me. It was complete opposite of anything that I was ever done ever, before that made me very successful.
Yeah.
We met customers out at that kiosk in the middle of the showroom. It just blew me away. It blew everyone away. But so I just want to say something else to that.
Mhm.
So I'm in a dealership in a franchise store and I'm training. And I meet the customer at the salesperson's desk, and I'm so used to now presenting the menu there. I don't need to present a menu to a customer in an F&I office. I'm
Mhm.
like, if you're comfortable there, I'm good. Let's go.
Right.
The dealer was so uncomfortable with that. He's like, what are you doing? Why would you do that? And I said, would it be okay that if I just told you right now the customer just purchased 3 products from me? Are we
Right.
okay with that? He's like, really? It's concept. They just, once they understand and own it, that you, like you said, give control to get control.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you think about other industries and where they are on this kind of digital journey. And I think about Rocket Auto. This is a good example. Or I should say Rocket Mortgage, right? They actually have an auto
Oh,
division,
yeah, yeah,
Rocket
yeah,
Mortgage, right? I bought a house primarily through my phone, right? I bought a house through my phone. Now, was there people involved? 100%, right? That there were people that interacted, but even when they interacted with me, it was still through a digital experience. When they uploaded forms, they did it through the app, right? And so we oftentimes put roadblocks in front of us on what is not possible. And if you don't think it's possible, it's not possible. Your people won't think it's possible. They're going to kill it. But if you could buy a house using digital technology, then no one can tell me that we can't use digital to improve the car buying experience.
So I will tell you, and I don't know if you know Brian Kramer.
Yes, yes,
Oh,
I do. I've met him a couple times.
he's amazing.
Yes.
I mean, you talk about the most moving forward GM.
Right.
He is.
Trailblazer.
He really is. No, he really is. And he's a good person. He's just a good person and great leader. Great leader. So I'm talking to his F&I person, and she's talking to me about, in fact, she will also be on this event talking about her digital journey from tradition to finalizing this transaction completely digital.
Yeah.
And it was very, very intimidating. But here's what she said that I was just told me before when we were talking. She was telling me that if it were up to her, she wouldn't have done it at all. At all. And
Yeah.
she said, if it weren't for Brian and his stick-to-itiveness, it wasn't like, oh, I think he's got a comment that he makes. This is the ship. We have one ship. It's in the harbor and that's it.
Right.
So it's this ship. It's in my harbor, something like that. Anyway,
Right.
so, but she said that was his position, period. He didn't waver. This is what he was going to do, come heck or high water. And that's what they did. So I'm hoping, I don't want to necessarily put you on the spot here.
No, okay.
But where is this change coming from? Is it coming from the F&I person, or is it coming from the top? Is it coming from the GMs like Brian?
Well, in terms of change, any change has to come from the top.
Okay.
And I think, when I talk about best practices on digital retailing and I speak about that, that's the first best practice, right? Is that you have to have leadership buy-in.
Yeah.
You have to have, and then you could filter that down to management and down to your people. But if it doesn't start at the top, it's likely not going to be executed on. And so for us, that's really important to get that buy-in, to help the managers understand what's in it for them, to help the people understand what's in it for them. But you need a Brian Kramer to start it off with.
And you can't waver. So I
Yes.
give Jermaine, his dealer, a lot of credit.
Yeah,
Because here comes,
absolutely.
well, he decided to move on this at the right time.
Yeah, and I think, you know,
But
it's like anything in business. If you're doing things solely based on profitability,
mhm,
it's somewhat of a short-term thinking. I'm talking about profitability today.
that's right.
Ultimately, we run businesses. We need to be profitable. But if you're only looking at how do I make money today, and you're not thinking about where things are going and the future of where it's going,
Mhm.
you're going to probably be left behind. And so oftentimes we hear of disruptors out there like a Carvana, and people will say, well, they're not profitable. You know, they're going to go under. And there's all
Oh,
this
yeah.
talk about that, right? And
Mhm.
who knows? I'm not an expert on their business model. But what I would say is look at a company like Amazon. Amazon, as I understand it, did not make profit for 9 or 10 years.
Mhm.
When you're pushing towards a new business model that has never been done before, you're likely going to sacrifice short-term profit to put you in a position that you're going to be dominating from a long-term standpoint. And I think
Yeah,
as when it
it's
comes to our industry, sometimes we can be very short-term thinking, right? Even right now, you're starting to see it where we're making so much money given the circumstances of the last couple of years that in some ways, some people are taking their foot off the gas.
yes,
They're
they
taking
are.
their foot off the gas.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And it's interesting to watch.
Yeah.
And because again, it's so right now easy, right? They pretty
Yes.
much control it all. So I'll just keep on doing what I've always been doing that makes me more profitable today. And
Yep.
unfortunate to that, the skill set, when it's all coming back to some sort of normalcy, where will that skill set be? Where is the direction? Where's the culture of that dealership and the processes that really help them to manage that better?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I don't I started my career in consumer insights, right? In the automotive industry. And I don't want to make it that it's only about the consumer because ultimately the business has to see the ROI as well. But I truly believe what I've heard from the founder of Amazon and other leaders that the consumer is going to drive the change, right? They're going to demand a certain experience. They're going to push the industry. And we are in a world where digital is accelerating that, is accelerating that. And so I think that we have to listen to the customer. We can't just sit on rest on our laurels or what has worked for us in the past. And if I owned a dealership right now, I would look at the experience, I would shake it all up and say, let me start from a fresh piece of paper.
Yeah.
What's working for us? What can we keep that we should keep because the traditions have worked? And what's not working? Right? What's not working? What's not going to work long term? I think we have to look at our process from a fresh lens.
And you know what? The time to do that is now. I
Yes.
mean, it couldn't be a better time. Because
Yeah.
we're just I mean, we don't have all this volume that we can step all over ourselves with. So, at this point, now is the time to do what Brian did. And you're exactly right. He rolled up his sleeves and he goes, "Let's look at this from all angles."
Yeah,
And
and
I think
it is
that's a good thing.
absolutely the time. And what I would say is that it's not a one size fits all for all dealers. You know, I don't want to simplify this that every dealer should do what Brian Kramer is doing. Or a lot of times we talk about Brian Benstock, and there's these guys out there that are and gals that are really pushing the envelope. It may not be for your brand, or you might be in a different region that what they're doing may or may not work.
That's
But
true.
what I would say is put your foot in the water though, right? Start somewhere. Start somewhere. So maybe that's going to be embracing the enabling customers to get payment and customize their payments online. And maybe that's getting a trade value. Or maybe that's allowing them to get approved for a loan like you can through our platform. But I think we got to start somewhere. There is no room for watching on the sidelines, or I'm afraid that when things return back to normal, we're going to be really frustrated at those disruptors that are gaining market share.
Keep doing what you're doing. And like I said, I enjoy working with you and I enjoy following you and your messages. I mean, they're just very positive.
Thank
Very
you,
positive. If
Becky.
there's
Thank you for
anything I can
having
do for
me on.
you, you let me know.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. And I look forward to seeing everyone in Atlanta. It's going to be
We're
fun.
going to do this. We
Yes.
are going to do this in the
Yes.
fall. We're building up the momentum, and AutoFi is kicking it off again.
Appreciate you having us. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely.